and then every so often he'd disappear for 2 or 3 nights at a time. The upshot of it was that I just said, look, we can't live in our workplace with a baby because it's not working. I had a job that I lived in and a home that was my job. Front door was open, the lights were on downstairs, and there's no sign of my husband. She said, you've clearly got postnatal depression. Because I can sort of say, well, I've come through the other side. So today's video is very different to the ones that you would normally find on this channel, and it's a video that you've wanted me to make for a long time. And if I'm completely honest, I started to make this video a few times, the first time being about 14 months ago, but when it came to doing the editing and uploading the video, I found it too tricky to do. I don't think I was ready to do it in terms of mentally. It was really quite a triggering process to go through, and in the end I just deleted the video. And on reflection, I'm ready now, because now I'm free of debt, I am free of ties, I'm just me, my money, and what I do with that is up to me. So it's not something else controlling me, if that makes sense. And because I can sort of say, well, I've come through the other side, I'm hoping that's going to be the right time. As I go through this video, I'm sure I'll find out to put everything together. So what ultimately I wanted to do was share with you my debt story, where I got myself into or how I got there, and the processes. And it is quite a long process. I'm mindful of giving you too much information, but a lot of it you probably need context for to be able to understand thought processes and everything else. So I'll try and not waffle, but I'm mindful of giving you enough information for you to sort of take in the whole picture. So I want to go back, let's see, about 15 years maybe. It's 2006, so a bit more. And I, with my then husband, bought a restaurant, which was a family restaurant. It had been in his family for quite some time. We bought it along with a chef from his parents. And at the time, we'd bought our new marital home. We'd just not long since been married. And when we bought our house for £119,000 for a 3-bedroom house, can you believe that? We bought it, and we actually paid a lot of money, and it was a lot of money at the time. But when we bought the restaurant, the house was in negative equity because it was just about the start of a recession. Things were sort of taking a hold. So we took out a loan to pay for the restaurant, and because we couldn't efficiently sell the house, it was more sensible to put tenants in there. So it was easier for us to put tenants in there than try and sell it and just continue to pay the mortgage from within the restaurant. We lived in the restaurant above it. It was a 24-hour-a-day job, so you know, you were the last ones to bed when the last customers went, whatever time that might be, and I was the first one up to let the cleaners in the morning to get on with everything else, and then you do your shifts in between and all the other things that come with a business. I wanted to be careful about saying too much information on here about personal things, because defamation of character and such, but it was tricky, and I did find myself working 70, 80, 90, 100 hour week, you know, there was just not enough hours in the day because somebody was off sick, then, you know, it was you to work, or if, you know, they needed something in the restaurant and living above it, then the phone was constantly ringing and you'd have to go down and fix it. There's no concept of a day off at all. So it's quite stressful, but it afforded us a good lifestyle, and effectively, you know, we were making a lot of money, and we did really, really well. We didn't have enough days off to spend it, but on the days that we did get off to spend it, then, you know, I'd definitely treat myself, living designer labels, living a really nice lifestyle. We had nice cars, we had, you know, top of the range of whatever we wanted, and it was a world away from my regular job I'd taken from university. And then 2007, there was the rest of the big crash in the market, and at the same time the no smoking ban, which I'm pro for, by the way, came into fruition, because at the time when we bought the restaurant you could smoke or not, you had either side within the same restaurant. That had an impact on the business, and then with the recession of everything else and people really struggling, there was definitely a decline in clientele and things like that. 2007, my daughter was born. At the end of 2007, I literally took the day off that I had her, because even in labour I was doing the accounts and doing the payroll, because I was trying to do anything to distract me, because they don't let you in, do they? So yeah, I remember doing that. I don't know whether people got paid the right amount on that day. I'm sure they'd have let me know, but it was Christmas, which meant that we were busy, and busiest time of year, and I couldn't afford really to take time off. It just wasn't going to be practical. So yeah, I had my daughter, but I was still coming downstairs, I was still doing the bits of jobs that I could, and, you know, people were in and out anyway. They wanted to see the baby because it was such a lovely kind of community restaurant, and yeah, so it wasn't very restful, shall we say. At the same time, I'd already put in a bid on another house, which I'd had idealised dreams of being able to renovate property and do that for a bit of a side hustle thing. I had lots of cash available to be able to do that. Wasn't sure where I was going to get the free time from, but that's what I really enjoyed doing. And before I'd found out I was pregnant, I put in a bid for a house, had fallen through. Well, my bid didn't get accepted, and then a few weeks later they came back and they said they'd accept my offer. So that was 113,000, and then I found out I was pregnant, but the house was in probate. It was taking ages to go through. So I do remember being 9 months pregnant, stripping wood chip wallpaper in this house renovation. There was no electric, the floorboards were all ripped up. I was like, this is a great idea, and that's fine. Yeah, so I did it by myself, basically. I'd hoped it'd be a joint project between myself and my then husband, but it didn't work out that way. So yeah, I was doing quite a lot of manual labour. I mean, it was a labour of love. I really did enjoy doing it. And then once Holly was born, unsurprisingly, I had postnatal depression. I had a job that I lived in and a home that was my job. I had very little support personally from my husband. You know, he went to work, and then when he wasn't working, he'd go to the pub instead of coming to see me. It wasn't, you know, ideal. I remember him just saying, well, what's the problem? It's not a job. You know, I've gone to work and I deserve to go out and enjoy myself. You just get to sit here with the baby. And I'm like, okay, right. And I remember the midwife coming to see me, and I think Holly must have been maybe a few weeks old. And she asked me to fill in one of these questionnaires, the postnatal questionnaire. And I remember looking at it and thinking, if I answer all these honestly, she's going to take me away right now. And I just thought, you know what, okay, I'm just going to fill this in honestly. And I ticked it all in and filled it all in. And I give it to her back, and I went, there you go. And she just looked at me and she went, well, I'm glad you've been honest. I did wonder whether you'd actually be honest with me. She said, you've clearly got postnatal depression. And like, she called my husband into the room. I don't know where he'd been. She said, look, she needs help, she needs support, you need to be doing a little bit more and everything else. And, you know, you just nodded in the right places and said everything else, you know, yeah, will do, I'll work, and unfortunately, for whatever failure in the system, the midwife disappeared and I never got any follow-up meetings or appointments, which, you know, I didn't know any different. I was like, oh, that must be it. Turned out the lady had gone off sick and nobody picked up her casework or anything, so I was just sort of left. Wasn't given any help, support, counselling, medicine. I was just like, oh, so I've got this. Okay, thank you for telling me, and off we go again. The upshot of it was that I just said, look, we can't live in our workplace with a baby because it's not working. Like, you know, I'm still working when I need some time out. The phones are always ringing from downstairs, wanting help. Yeah, and so what we ended up doing was moving in to the house I'd just renovated, which I'd planned on selling. It just gave us a little bit of place to escape work. Made it into a home. I'm lucky I'd done so much work before baby had come. There was literally 2 weeks of decorating left to do and moving bits of furniture in. And it was just easier. It became easier. Around the same time as I was growing to love being a mum, I also came back to a dream that I'd always wanted to do, which was teaching. And I thought, well, I've got children now and that would be great to sort of fit in with her going to school and fitting around all those things. So that was that plan. So I then, 2008, started to apply to do my PGC. I'd already done my degree in business studies and computer studies in Salford many years before. And I had no idea how I did it, but I got taken on at Edinburgh University. First time I applied, I got straight on. I know it was oversubscribed that year, so I was quite happy with that. And around the same time, we sold the restaurant back to my then in-laws, and then they later made the decision to sell the restaurant. I'm sort of going through a few years, so we ended up walking away with nothing from the restaurant because whilst we sold it back, we just gave it back effectively. The profits that we got were no longer profits that we were getting. I'd gone to teacher training and I then needed lots of income, and I think this is where I sort of started to do my side hustles and things. So I tried everything to bring in extra money, but I had to do it around baby, I had to do it around teacher training, and I was still doing some shifts at the restaurant and things. And at the same time, you know, there was a recession, and I remember doing pampered chef parties. I remember making crafts and trying to sell them. I remember just selling everything in my house. I remember one point I sold my grandma's jewellery. She died a few years before, and I was gutted to sell that, but I couldn't meet the mortgage that month. My in-law even gave me some of her gold that she'd happy for me to sell. She said, oh, don't wear it anymore, sell it, give yourself some money. But I was, as fast as I could make it, my husband was drinking it. When my father-in-law sold the restaurant, my husband was then out of a job, and he'd always had a job from school because it was his family business. So he struggled to sort of make the transition where you had to be in a job where you were told what to do and you had to do it. Whereas previously, you know, he'd take a shift, and then if it was a split shift, go to the pub in the afternoon and then not be able to work the evening, or not want to. If there's football on, you know, we just move all the shifts around so we could go and watch the match in the pub or at the stadium. Whereas obviously you can't just do that when somebody else is telling you what to do. So he went through quite a lot of jobs, and this seemed to sort of be a trend. you know, it was all the time, and he didn't have qualifications. That was what he'd known all his life, was working in the business, and I don't think, it was definitely a shock. So if he wasn't in between work, then he was not working, or he couldn't get full-time jobs, could only get part-time hours. By now I qualified and I was on a teacher's wage. And I remember bringing home my first paycheck, it was like £1,100. At this point, we also had other tenants in the first house we owned. So people look and think, oh, you've got 2 houses, you must be very rich. Well, no, we just can't afford to sell them. And then I was paying the mortgage on one, and you know, luckily we were very fortunate there was always a tenant in the other house. That never seemed to be an issue, and we had good tenants as well. But it just felt like it was a struggle to keep going. I was sort of supporting 3 people then. I had 3 mouths to feed on my £1,100 wage. Plus, we'd racked up quite a lot of debt and things, and we had loans and credit cards that we'd had to take out, loans to pay off to buy the restaurant in the first place. And when I first got the restaurant, I really wasn't very wise. If I thought about it, I probably should have paid off my loans quite quickly, and I didn't think of it. I was just like, I'll pay it every month, that's it, that's how it goes. And I buy designer stuff, and you know, that's what I'd rather spend my money on. But then I did invest some into the other house, but again, I'd have to take a loan out to do part of that, because at the time you could get 110, 120% mortgages, so I got 110% mortgage, and it needed furnishing, and I had to spend a lot on renovations, so I took out another loan. And I think I had just this idealised process, I don't even know. It wasn't, I didn't sit down and look at the numbers properly. And I think that's one of the lessons I've definitely learned, is you need to open the letters, you need to look at the bills, you need to count the numbers, you need to see exactly what you owe, where things have gone, what's happened. Otherwise, it was very much head buried in the sand. By the time my then husband had lost about his 5th or 6th job, and he was on the dole, I remember that. I think he got about £70 a week, I think he got, and I'd asked him to put it into the joint fund, and I was told no, because he needed that for cigarettes and socialising. And I was just like, what am I doing? What is going on? You know, it was just hard, because I was doing that, and I took on a part-time job. There was other things, you know, there's other things that always go on. But ultimately, I just said, look, enough's enough. And then I'd already had it in my mind, and I kept thinking, is it just me? Am I being oversensitive? Am I overreacting to some of the things? So I started to keep a diary, you know, social things he wouldn't want to do. I'd taken Holly somewhere, and I'd get told he was too tired, he didn't want to. And then by the time I got home with her, I'd find he'd actually gone to the pub, and he was still in the pub, and then he'd come back drunk, and then I felt like I was already a single parent, and that sort of helped my decision. I had very little social life of my own, because I couldn't afford to, or I was always working, or if I wasn't doing those, I was with Holly. The one thing that I had kept up was the gym, and it was sort of like my sounding board, my place out. I also kept thinking, you know, if I could lose this baby weight, maybe he'd be more interested in me and want to spend more time with us. That's the process that was in my head. And so I was going to the gym. I'd go at like 6 o'clock in the morning, just so, you know, I didn't have to leave him to sort out the baby, so she'd be asleep while I was out. By the time I got back, you know, we were ready. Or if I did get the occasional time of an afternoon or an evening, if she'd gone out with the grandparents or something like that, I'd go then. But instead of seeing it as a positive thing, you then decide I must be having an affair, because why would I want to try and lose weight? I was like, well, no. why am I going to the gym? We went to the gym for over an hour. I'm like, well, yeah, but I also came back with a bag of groceries, so I went to the gym, got the groceries, and now I'm back. I'm just remembering some of the daft conversations and yeah, I don't know whether it was just he didn't want to be on his own with the child, or I don't know, speculating. So yeah, there was a gym night out, and I was so desperate to go on this night out for Christmas. I'd been looking forward to it for ages, and it was in the diary. And so I was getting ready to go out, and he came in and he was like, well, I want to go out tonight. I was like, well, I'm going out, sort of thing. You're gonna have to mind Holly. No. I want to go out. And I was like, I've literally not been out for forever. And whenever I did try and go out, you know, I did come across these same sort of situation. He was telling Holly, you know, you're gonna have to go for a sleepover at Grandma's. If you don't go to Grandma's, Father Christmas won't come. And I felt absolutely, I just went to forget it. I won't go. You know, I think I paid like £10 deposit for this party or something, £10. I just thought, oh, not even. And then you get the double bluff. No, you go and I won't go. And by the time I'd left the thing, I was in such a bad mood. I just remember thinking, I don't want to be with you anymore. This isn't okay. When you're blackmailing a 3-4-year-old child, that's not okay for your own selfish benefit. And I was just like, no, we can do better than this. We'll do okay. When I did come home, he then walked out the house, and I didn't see him for about 3 days. When he walked back in, I told him I wanted a divorce, but then the problem was that he had nowhere to go, and we had tenants in the other house, and he had no job, he had no money. He was relying on me to feed him, clothe him, water him, other than the door money he was getting. And so, you know, I said, well, fine, sleep on the couch until you get yourself sorted. And then every so often he'd disappear for 2 or 3 nights at a time. Tell me he was staying at friends to give me a break from him and things like that. And you know, when you just know something's not right. So, I think it was Christmas. Yeah, it was Christmas Eve. It was my birthday, Christmas Eve. He was extremely drunk. I hadn't by then told my family that we were separating. In fact, in the back of my head, I'd asked him a few times if he'd go for counselling. I'd already tried the AA route, and you know, there's no issue, so why should we do that? And didn't want to do counselling, waste of time, because even though I thought, you know, I wanted a divorce, it's not ultimately I wanted a family. I wanted a big family. I wanted 3-4 children, and the other thing that kept popping in my mind was I want another child, but I can't see it working. I'll be having another child with you, because he was already like a child himself, and that was my sort of my push. Because even though, you know, if he wanted to do the counsel, I probably would have done that. Didn't want to do it. So Christmas Eve, it was my birthday, and he'd gotten surprisingly very drunk, and he'd left his phone. He'd taken his phone and he put it under his pillow. He never slept with his phone under his pillow. And he got himself into my bed with Holly. And I was like, why have you put your phone under your pillow? And I was like, no, not right here, okay. So not something I condone, but I did go take the phone and look at it, because he was that drunk he wouldn't have woken up for anything. And that's obviously when I found he'd been having this affair for a while. So it was like obviously a few years back now, but I had to take photographs with my phone so I had the messages saved in case he tried to deny them. I didn't say anything because the next day was Christmas Day, so it was a lovely birthday present. And then it was Christmas Day, and my family were around, and I think I was doing dinner and playing, you know, on the games on the computer. I think we did like Just Dance and all those things. And for all intents and purposes, I just sat there and thought, I've got to pretend and smile all the way through this, when actually you're having an affair over there. I'm absolutely up to my eyeballs in debt, and I have no idea what tomorrow's going to look like at all. He went to bed. No, I went to bed. Took Holly to bed about 10 o'clock. We were both exhausted. She got in bed with me. And when I woke up about 3, front door was open. The lights were on downstairs. And there's no sign of my husband. On Christmas night, he clearly walked out or gone somewhere. When it got to about 8 o'clock in the morning, I messaged him. No reply. Tried ringing, no reply. On and on for about 2 or 3 hours. He eventually responded when I said, Holly's asking for you. He rang. I answered the phone and just told him that his stuff was in bags at the front. And that, yeah. I think I ended up taking him to his brother's. Forgotten that bit. I think they went to his brother's. Via my brother. When he then went to Spain for a few weeks to stay with his parents who were over there. I didn't hear of him. When he came back, he tried to get into the house. And I knew he was landing. I put my key in the door so he couldn't get in. I thought, there's no way you're coming in because you won't leave. I'm done. So I had to ring the police and other things, but he eventually left. And that was it, really. He moved straight in with his girlfriend. However, I'm then left with all the debts, all the bills. There's nothing coming from him at all. No maintenance, I wouldn't expect that anyway. So, you know, what I did end up getting was a massive gas and electric bill. So while he'd been at home, because he hadn't been working, he'd had the heating on all day, all night, full whack from what I can figure out. Now, compared to today's prices, it's not very much, but at the time, I was used to paying something like maybe £80 or £90 a month. It gone up to about £240, and it was that stayed like that for about a year because it backdated. I can't remember the exact thing now. It got backdated, and he must have, I don't know what he'd done, because he must have, that's all I could summarise with, that he just whacked up the heating all the time. I remember it being so cold, and I couldn't put the heating on for even 5 minutes for us. We just lived, we sat on couches, on the couch under blankets, like in duvets. We just, Holly just slept with me. It was just warmer for us to sleep together. Or I'd like try and talk parents into letting us visit for an evening just so we could thaw out. It was really tricky, really tricky. I ended up having to buy food on credit cards, so I got in more debt. I think I probably took out another loan to try and consolidate some of the debt and ended up spending more on the debt, on the thing, just to sort of live. And then I tried to get divorced. And that was another story.